First, I'd like to say thank you so much for opening up your church to me today and allowing me to be here. I've rarely seen such a warm and wonderful group of people. Before we begin, I'd like to read a little, a letter of instructions from Jack, your minister. This is something that he left for me on his way out the door. He said, first off, let me see here. He says, I am confident that you will do fine. And just remember these 3 unique rules. Let me get my eyes out here. Oh, there it is. And it will be smooth sailing. Smooth sailing for me, at least. I will be on the allure of the seas, getting my second helping of everything that they are serving this morning. Rule number 1, don't ramble on and on about anything. Let 24 minutes maximum be your length guide. Remember, the folks love coffee hour, so do not go long in your message. Keeping them longer than you have can be lethal. Now, I must admit, I've never heard the word lethal used in connotation with a church congregation. But I am aware of it, just to let you guys know. Longer than you have to be. I never caught them with any firearms, but I would not poke the Unitarian Universalist tigers in the audience just to see if they are packing today. You can ask Candy or Russ to open my office door, and on that door you will find robes and stoles. I don't like robes. They're billowing in the way. Rule number 2, don't bring your clergy shirt. Don't wear the plastic dog collar wrapped around your neck. Now, just to let you know, the collar that I wear doesn't go all the way around my neck. It just goes in the front. Rule number 3, do not mention any D's ever. Any and all deities honored in other religious denominations. That means no Jesus, no Moses, no Muhammad, no Buddha, which I just mentioned. No Krishna, no Vishnu, no nothing. Now, you may mention Jack Kopus as many times as you wish, and always refer to Jack Kopus as your worship. They like that. They like it when visitors share high compliments about me. It's always a good thing to do. Actually, I like it, and I don't have any clue if they like it. You should tell them I miss them more than a cone of Dairy Cream, vanilla ice cream covered with a cherry dip. I love you all, and please be nice to Russell. Now, my message today is let peace prevail here. And before we begin that, may this message of my heart touch your heart so that we become more closer together. Now, I got the name for this and the idea for this by a story that Jack told me. I don't know, in the first year he was working here. And he told me about this sign. He said there's a sign in the front. And he says it has, let peace prevail here. And he says, it's in all different languages. And he said, I've been going for the church for a very long time, and I never noticed it. I never noticed the sign was here. Let peace prevail here, until I almost backed into it, backing out my car. Now, Jack, you know, as he is not the greatest of drivers. I equivocate his driving. See, when I was a kid, my family took me to Disney World a lot, and my favorite ride was the Wild Ride of Mr. Toad. And that's what it's like driving with Jack. Now, Bishop Desmond Tutu once said that every man and woman sent out from their church should be a person of their nation as well as a person of their time, and I am confident that the men and women who carry the honor of being Unitarian Universalists will continue to give from their lives, from their talents, a high measure of public service and public support. These are characteristics that endear us to each other. There are few earthly things more beautiful than a church, wrote Thomas Jefferson in his tribute to the ideal of the separation of church and state. And his words are equally true today. Now, he did not refer to the spires, to the towers, to the green campuses and the ivied walls and the statuary. He admired the splendid beauty of the church. He said it was because it was a place where those who hate ignorance may strive to know, where those who perceive truth may strive to make others see. It is overwhelming to discuss a topic on which this ignorance is too often abounds and the truth is too rarely perceived, yet is the most important topic on earth facing each of us: peace among all nations. What kind of peace do I mean? What kind of peace do we seek? Not the Pax Americana enforced on the world by American weapons of war, not the peace of the grave or the security of the slave. I am talking about a genuine peace, the kind of peace that makes life on earth worth living, the kind that enables men and women and nations to grow and to hope and to build a better life for their children. Not merely peace for Americans, but peace for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time, but peace for all time. I speak of peace because of the new face of war. Total war makes no sense in an age where great powers can maintain large and relatively invulnerable nuclear forces and can refuse to surrender without resorting to those forces. It makes no sense at all, that in an age where a single nuclear weapon contains almost 100 times the explosive force delivered by all the Allied air forces in the Second World War. It makes no sense in an age where the deadly poisons produced by a nuclear exchange would be carried by wind, water, and soil and seed to the far corners of the globe and to generations yet to come. Today, the expenditure of billions of dollars every year on weapons acquired for the purpose of making sure we never need to use them is essential to keeping peace. But surely the acquisition of such idle stockpiles, which can only destroy, can never create, is not the only, much less the most efficient means of assuring peace. I was astonished to discover that there are 9 known countries that possess a stockpile of nuclear weapons: the United States, Russia, China, the United Kingdom, France, India, Pakistan, Israel, and North Korea. And North Korea is constantly threatening to shoot 1 or 2 off when they're upset over some perceived slight or some international issue. And of course, we have Vladimir Putin, promises to shoot off some nuclear weapons in Belarus if his demands are not met and he is not allowed to occupy Ukraine, or if somebody does indeed advance on Russia. I speak of peace, therefore, as the necessary, rational end of irrational men and women. I realize that the pursuit of peace is in no way as dramatic as the pursuit of war. And frequently the words of the pursuers of peace fall on deaf ears. They are drowned out by the anthems of war. But we have no more urgent task before us. Some say that it is useless to speak of world peace or world law or world disarmament, and that it will be useless until the leaders of the totalitarian countries adopt a more enlightened attitude. And I hope they do. I believe we can help them do it. And history shows that we have tried to help them. But I also believe that we must re-examine our own attitude as individuals and as a nation, for our attitude is as essential as theirs. Dramatic pause. Every Unitarian Universalist, every thoughtful citizen who despairs of war and wishes to bring peace should begin by looking inward, by examining his or her own attitude toward the possibilities of peace, toward oppressive regimes, and toward freedom and peace here at home. First, let us examine our attitude toward peace itself. Too many of us think this is impossible. Too many think it is unreal, but that is a dangerous, defeatist belief. It leads to the conclusion that war is inevitable and that we are all doomed, that we are all gripped by forces that we cannot control. That's just not true. We need not accept that view. Our problems are people created. Therefore, they can be solved by people. We can be as big as we want. No problem in human history is beyond human beings. Our reason and spirit have often solved seemingly unsolvable. We believe that we can do it. That is the key. And I'm not referring to the absolute infinite concept of peace and goodwill which some fantasies and some fanatics dream. I do not deny the values of hopes and dreams, but we merely invite discouragement and incredulity by making our only an immediate goal. Let us focus instead on a more practical, more obtainable peace, based not on the sudden revolution in human nature, but on the gradual evolution in human institutions and spirit, on a series of concrete actions and effective agreements which are in the interest of everybody concerned. There is no single simple key to this peace, no grand or magic formula to be adopted by one or two powers or by any nation. Genuine peace must be the product of many nations and the sum of many acts. It must be dynamic, not static, changing to meet the challenge of each new generation. For peace is a process. Let me say that again. For peace is a process, a way of solving problems. With such a peace, there will still be quarrels and conflicting interests, as there are within families, as there are within this church and every other church. Everybody is going to quarrel at times. World peace, like community peace, does not require that each man and woman love his neighbor. It requires only that they live together in mutual tolerance, submitting their disputes to a just and peaceful settlement. And history teaches us that enmities between nations, as between individuals, do not last forever. However fixed our likes and dislikes may seem, the tide of time and the events will often bring surprising changes in the relations between nations and neighbors. There was a time recently in the past when we partnered with Russia on lots of projects for the betterment of all people. So let us persevere. Peace need not be impractical, and war need not be inevitable. By defining our goals more clearly, by making it seem more manageable and less remote, we can help all peoples to see it, to draw hope from it, and to move irresistibly toward it. Second, let us re-examine our attitude toward dictator countries. It is discouraging to think that leaders may actually believe what propagandists write. It is discouraging to read a recent authoritative text on military strategy and find, on page after page, wholly baseless and incredible claims, such as allegations that American imperialist circles are preparing to unleash different types of war, that there is a very real threat of a preventative war being unleashed by American capitalists against their countries, and so forth. The political aims of the American imperialists are to enslave economically and politically the European and other capitalist countries and to achieve world domination by aggressive wars. As an American, I find this insulting and repugnant. And I say truly, as it was written long ago, the wicked flee when no man pursueth. Yet it is sad to read these statements, to realize the extent of the gulf between us. But it is also a warning to the American people not to fall into the same trap as these countries, not to see a distorted and desperate view of the other side, not to see conflict as inevitable, accommodation as impossible, and communication nothing more than the exchange of threats. No government or social system is so evil that its people must be considered lacking in virtue. As Americans, we find these dictators profoundly repugnant as a negation of personal freedom and dignity. But we can still hail their people for their many achievements in science, in space, economics, and industrial growth, in their culture, and in their acts of courage. Many among the traits of the peoples of our two peoples or any country have been in common. None is stronger than our mutual abhorrence of war. And many of these nations in the history of battle have suffered mercilessly in the course of war. Over all of the wars, think of the millions of people who have lost their lives. Countless millions of homes and farms were burned or sacked. When the war ended, their countries were annihilated. Now here in America, we have no idea what that was like. We've never been attacked on American soil here in the United States. We've had outpost attacks and things of that nature, but in Florida, we've never experienced an air siren. Now, I did some work in other countries where I've actually heard the fighting in the streets. And I've seen people dying for no reason other than it's a patch of land that someone else wants. Or it's a way of life that someone else wants to force upon them. And think today, should total war ever break out, no matter how our combined countries would become targets, it is an ironic but accurate fact that the strongest powers are in the most danger of devastation. All we have built, all we have worked for, will probably be destroyed in the first 24 hours. My brother has spent a lot of time as a guest of the state government and the federal government. And he used to tell me, if it ever happens to you, you go in and you find the biggest person and you punch them in the face, which is, I think, what would happen to us, this country. I think we would be the first ones attacked. And in the first 24 hours would be total devastation. And any actual war, which brings burdens and dangers to so many nations, including this nation's closest ally, we bear the heaviest burden, for we are both devoting massive sums of money to weapons that could better be devoted to combating ignorance, poverty, and disease. We are both caught up in a vicious and dangerous cycle in which suspicion on one side breeds suspicion on the other, and new weapons beget counter-weapons. And if you don't think that's true, ask our friends in the Ukraine. In short, both the United States and its allies and our adversaries and their allies have a mutually deep interest in just such a genuine peace, in the halting the arms race. Agreements to this end are in their interest as well as ours. And even the most hostile nations can be relied upon to accept and keep those treaty obligations, and only those treaty obligations that are in their own best interests. So let us not be blind to our differences, but also let us direct our attention to our common interests and to the means by which these differences can be resolved. If we cannot end our differences, at least we can help make the world safe for diversity. For in the final analysis, our most basic common link is that we all inhabit this one small planet. We all breathe the same air, drink the same water. We all live and cherish our children's future. We are all mortal. And the third thing, let us re-examine our attitude toward war itself, remembering that we are not engaged in a debate here, seeking to pile up debating points. We are not here distributing blame or pointing the finger of judgment. We must deal with the world as it is, and not as it might have been had our history been different. We must therefore persevere in the search for peace, in the hope that constructive changes within these aggressive nations might bring within reach solutions which now seem to elude us. We must conduct our affairs in such a way that it becomes everyone's interest to agree on a genuine peace above all. While defending our own vital interests, nuclear powers must avert those confrontations which bring an adversary to a choice of either humiliating retreat or nuclear war. To attempt that kind of course in a nuclear age would be evidence only of the bankruptcy of our policy or of a collective death wish for the world. You know this and I know this. To secure these ends, America's weapons must be non-provocative, carefully controlled, and designed to detour, and capable of selective use. Our military forces are committed to peace and disciplined in self-restraint. Our diplomats must be instructed to avoid unnecessary irritants and purely rhetorical hostility. For we can seek a relaxation of tension without relaxing our guard. Even Ronald Reagan felt he trusted the Russians after he verified their promises. And for our part, we do not need to use threats to prove we are resolute. We do not need to jam foreign broadcasts out of fear. Our faith will be eroded. We are unwilling to impose our system on an unwilling people, but we are willing and able to engage in a peaceful competition with any people on earth. Meanwhile, we must seek to strengthen the United Nations, to help resolve its financial problems, and to make it more effective instrument for peace, to develop it into a genuine world security system, a system capable of resolving disputes on the basis of law, of ensuring the security of large and small, and creating conditions under which arms can be finally abolished. At the same time, we seek to keep peace through the free world where many nations, all of them our friends, are divided over issues which weaken Western unity, which invite autocratic invention, or which threaten to erupt into war. Our efforts in Africa, in the Middle East, and in Pakistan have been persistent and patient despite criticism from both sides. We have also tried to set an example for others by seeking to adjust small but significant differences within our own closest neighbors in Central America. Our NATO commitment to defend Western Europe and Ukraine, for example, stands undiminished because of the identity of our vital interests. The United States will make no deal with dictatorships at the expense of other nations and other peoples, not merely because they are our partners, but also because their interests and ours converge. As Dr. Martin Luther King reminds us, we are inextricably bound by a network of mutuality, and no man is an island. We cannot walk alone. Our interests converge, however, not in defending the frontiers of freedom, but in pursuing the path of peace. It is our hope and our purpose of allied policies to convince oppressive regimes that they too should let each nation choose its own future, so long as that choice does not interfere with the choices of others. The totalitarian drive impose their political and economic system on others is a primary cause for the world tension today. For there can be no doubt at all, if all nations could refrain from interfering in the self-determination of others, the peace would be much more assured. And I know you agree with me on this. This will require a new effort to achieve world law, a new context For world discussions, it will require increasing understanding between all non-democratically elected nations and ourselves. And increased understanding will require increased contact and communication. One step in this direction is the Internet, where instant communication preempts miscommunications or dangerous delays. We must also stay engaged about other first-step measures of arms control designed to limit the intensity of the arms race and to reduce the risk of accidental war. Our primary long-range interest in disarmaments, however, is general and complete disarmament, designed to take place by stages, permitting parallel political developments to build new institutions of peace which would take the place of arms. The pursuit of disarmament has been an effort of our government for decades. It has been urgently sought by all of our elected presidents since Harry Truman. And however dim the prospects may be today, we intend to continue this effort, to continue in order that all countries, including our own, can better grasp what the problems and possibilities of disarmament are. One major area of these negotiations where the end is in sight, yet where a fresh start is badly needed after all the failures, is a new 9-country treaty to outlaw nuclear testing. The conclusion of such a new treaty, so near and yet so far, would check the spiraling arms race in one of its most dangerous areas. It would place the nuclear powers in a position to deal more effectively with one of the greatest hazards that we all face today, the further spread of nuclear arms. It would increase our security. It would decrease the prospects of war. Surely this goal is sufficiently important to require our steady pursuit, yet yielding neither to the temptation to give up the whole effort, nor the temptation to give up our insistence on vital and responsive safeguards. 2 steps are critical for us to initiate when dealing with high-level death weapons. First, we must all look toward an early agreement on a comprehensive test ban treaty. Our hopes must be tempered with the caution of our combined failed history. But with our hope goes the hopes of all humanity. Second, we must make clear our good faith and solemn convictions on the matter, that the United States, our country, with 10 times more nuclear weapons than all the other countries combined, does not propose to conduct nuclear tests in the atmosphere so long as other countries do not do so. We will not be the first to resume such testings of death weapons. I know such a declaration is no substitute for a formal binding treaty that we stick to, but I hope it will help us finally to achieve a lasting one. Nor would such a treaty be a substitute for disarmament, but I hope it will help us to achieve it. Everything is riding on it. And finally, my Unitarian Universalist brothers and sisters, we absolutely must examine our attitude toward peace and freedom here at home. The quality and spirit of our own country must justify the support of our efforts abroad. We must show in the dedication of our own lives, as many of you today have unique UU opportunities to do, by serving in so many ways to strengthen our local, state, and federal governments. But whatever we are, we must all, in our daily lives, live up to the age-old faith that peace and freedom walk hand in hand together. In too many of our cities today, the peace is not secure because the freedom is not complete. Peace, as Dr. King pointed out, is not merely the absence of tension. It is the presence of justice. It is the responsibility of the executive branch at all levels of government, local and state and national, to provide and protect freedom for all of our citizens, by all means within their authority. It is the responsibility of the legislative branch at all levels, wherever that authority is not now adequate, to make it adequate. It is the responsibility of all citizens in all sections of this country to respect the rights of all others and to respect the rule of law of our land. We must insist other countries do the same. This is not unrelated to peace. This is not unrelated to the peace I know you seek. I must honestly ask you, is not peace, at the end of the day, basically a matter of human rights? The rights to live our lives without fear of devastation or persecution. The right to breathe the air as nature has provided it, without pollution, without pain. The right for future generations for a healthy existence. Who in the world does not want these basic life-sustaining attributes? While we proceed to safeguard our national interests, let us also safeguard human interests. And the elimination of war and arms is clearly in the interest of both. No treaty, however much it may be to the advantage of all, however tightly it may be worded, can provide absolute security against the risks of deception and evasion. But it can, if it is sufficiently effective in its enforcement, and if it is sufficiently in the interest of those also wanting peace, far more security and far fewer risks than an unabated, uncontrolled, runaway Pentagon budget, leading to, of course, an unpredictable arms race. One mistake all of us will pay the price for beyond any we can. One mistake, and all of us will pay the price beyond any we can imagine. That is how serious this is for every one of the 8 billion people living on Earth. The United States will never start a war. I believe this now more than ever because Americans do not want a war. We do not expect a war. This generations of Americans have already had enough, more than enough, of war and of hate and of oppression. However, we shall be prepared if others wish it. We shall try to stop it, but we must also do our part to build a world of peace where the weak are safe and the strong are just. We are not helpless before that task or hopeless of its success. Confident and unafraid, we labor on, not toward a strategy of annihilation, but towards a strategy for permanent peace. Even with Israel and Hamas and Pakistan and North Korea and every other country we now see in conflict, we will achieve peace. How you may ask? We will turn all of our swords into plowshares and study war no more. This is not a threat, but merely a statement of fact. Thank you very much for having me here today.